to change the world, you must be your very best in the darkest moments.
the same story everywhere.
Hello, my fellow regards. I cannot... Hello, my fellow regards. I cannot believe it's been a year since we've been doing these mock pre-FOMC press briefings. So let's get started, shall we? There won't be any rate hikes or cuts because my hands are tied. The rate of inflation is slowing down. Yeah, you are paying 3 times as much for food as you were 2 years ago, but you know you can still pay the tip on top of that. You dinks putting out videos about how great it is to not have any kids. This is why I must break the American middle class. You idiots are running up the Ponzi cryptos again. Good job. Yes, queens and kings. Make way for my plans of a centralized digital currency. You're just making things easier for me. I do have an announcement to make. I will be going on tour with my band soon, we are releasing our first song called JP's Got You by the Balls. Turn on the music. You guys will love it. Every call you take, every put you make, every bond you break, every spoof you fake, SEC is watching you every single day. Every word you say, every game you play, every night you stay, I'll be watching you. Oh, can't you see? You belong to me. Fuck your puts, fuck your calls. JP's got you by the balls. Every bid you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every spoof you fake, he'll be watching you. Oh, his name is Jerome. He'll fuck your puts till you go home. I've only known it. Oh, how his poor heart aches every rate hike he makes, every call you take, every put you make, every bond you break, every spoof you fake, SEC is watching you. Oh, can't you see? You belong to me. Fuck your puts, fuck your calls. JP's got you by the balls.
What is going on, guys? I appreciate you all joining up here on the live stream today. We got the 4 chart setup going here for Powell and the FOMC interest rate decision. And that decision should be out within just about 3 minutes, about 2.5 minutes, somewhere just like that. But let's go, guys. You can see all the big stocks right here. SPY, NVIDIA, Tesla, and Meta all right here up on the charts. We'll see how these tech stocks end up doing here today. As of now, there's a 54% chance of a rate cut in March. That's a pretty big probability. It's been shifting nonstop. It's been going from like 60 down to 50, down up to 54 over the past few days. And now it's, shifted more towards that cut side as of today. After Powell speaks, we're going to see these change. I'm going to keep refreshing this multiple times throughout the stream, so you guys will probably see me refreshing all the time. If so, that is why. But we're looking for these numbers to change. And I think that coming today, we could start to see some really, really good movement here out of the SPY as well. And some of these tech stocks possibly even to the downside. I know that, excuse me. I know that that might sound a little bit rough, but whenever you talk about SPY to the downside, if we start to see Powell shift more towards pausing for longer, that's going to be something where the market might start to get a little shaky. So watch out for that. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully he comes in and gives that indication of rate cuts and that the Fed members are looking for those cuts. But right now, the market right around all-time highs. We have to hope that that decision can make or break these stocks here. So I'm going to bring up the 4 chart setup. SPY's already starting to get volatile a little bit. You can see that on the screen. Just waiting for the news to hit. I'm staring at it on Thinkorswim News. Here, I'll even bring it up for you guys at the bottom middle. Second that hits, let's see. It's hard to say which way it's going to go. And remember, it could move up and then down whenever Powell speaks. Right now, we're seeing it initially fly up, force 87.80, but it's going to be volatile. Now down. It came out. The news is not updating, though. Let's go SPX. No, SPY. CNBC will get us, right? That market is definitely looking pretty crazy, though, right now. All right, so pause, of course, just like we thought. Key overnight policy rate unchanged. We all thought it would be a pause. It was really priced in for that this time. Good thing we're seeing that. I fooled you guys. Yeah, Oscar, the way that JP was saying balls on there was pretty funny, wasn't it? But yeah, here we go. SPY really starting to run down now on that 1 minute chart. Top left of your screen is the SPY, but all the big tech stocks here are looking pretty brutal, honestly. None of them are looking fantastic yet. And like I said, everything could change whenever JP actually starts speaking. You know, that's going to play a big, big role here because he's going to talk about the future and what they're looking at. Also, we're going to get more news here as more documents and etc. come out. Like, here's the statement. All right, we'll bring that up a little bit here too if we can. Maybe condense it a little. I got the statement on the right side of the screen if you guys want to give that a read. The FOMC on Wednesday announced updates that further enhance its policy on investment and trading. The policy, which was first adopted in 2022, aims to support public confidence in the impartiality and integrity of the committee's work. The existing policy, let's see. The updates will increase the number of Federal Reserve System staff who will be covered. Okay. I mean, that's all right, but I really need to see what we're talking about with the rate cuts here. I don't really care about adding more people to the to the Federal Reserve's staff. We'll see more statements coming out, though, obviously, and the big one will come out whenever Powell starts speaking, obviously. His opening statement will be very, very important. We all know that, and we'll all be awaiting that to happen later on. Yo, King, Jason, what's up? Fortnite, Rip had calls. Oh, no. It's okay, though. The calls aren't necessarily ripped yet. It's only down like 2 points. Just under low of day. It's not like it's down too much yet. It could be worse. It could be worse. And it might get worse. But for now, it's not too bad. Looking ahead, though, into the markets here, as we await Powell to speak here in about 27 minutes, there's going to be a lot of volatility going on. And one big thing that looks at volatility is VXX. Big ticker, big stock. We can all trade it. It's starting to move up a little bit on this news here. VXX is one that really entices me today. If that market really does start to continue to the downside, VXX and UVXY will provide some great intraday opportunities. But we need to really confirm that the market's going to fall here. Like I said, it's not down too much yet. Here, it's already coming back. See? Already coming back. No position open for the kitty. Here for all the drama. I like it. Hey, for sure. Shout out to Lorraine. She's watching with me. It'll make her. I love it, Jane. Shout out to you, Lorraine. I love it. You know what, Lorraine? We got to give you a round of applause. Thank you for being here. Let's go. Let's go. Shout out to Lorraine. But yeah, for the rest of the day here, we're going to have to hope Powell can keep us going. Looking at the bottom here on SPY, this low as of today, 485.64, 485.65. Going to be a big spot if we start to break back under there, obviously. It could be a possible another rundown. Until we break that, though, for now, just watch out for more chop, because before Powell speaks, there's going to be a lot up in the air, right? A lot of questions. Hoping to maybe find some more news here on what the feds are looking at. We'll look at the CNBC article. Indicates it's not ready to start cutting. And see, that was the exact thing that we were talking about. The exact thing that I've been talking about night in and night out on the nightly videos and on the streams, is that they might not be ready to start cutting, or they're going to not cut as soon, right? And that's what we're looking at here. And we're going to have to watch our probabilities, because before this came out, they were going to cut in March. It's been March for a month or so now. It's been off and on, but mainly it's been swaying towards March. We'll have to see. With this now today, this could be starting to switch more towards pausing in March, and the market might start pricing that in, which could in turn drop stocks a little bit. We'll have to see. The question is, did the market already price in, this? Which is the Fed's holding this pause for longer, or holding the rate steady longer too. Did the market already price that in? I would doubt it. I think the market's been pricing in more cuts and cuts in March. And that's been kind of why the market's been making new all-time highs, right? So I would think, as of now, this is a pretty bearish situation going forward. I would definitely keep your eyes on VXX and UVXY, especially with stocks being so overextended too. With that being said, though, they're not necessarily falling. Look at NVIDIA. They're actually moving up now. They're back to green since this event started. AMD also back. Microsoft trying to come back. Apple's not necessarily back. Now, that one's staying more in the dumps. But you guys can see that these stocks are trying to come back after this, but just watch out. I think if Powell starts speaking and he starts saying something about inflation's upticking again and it's just really not getting to where they thought it would be at this point of the year, that would be pretty rough. So just be ready. SPY's starting to move down again. We're getting some more red. Is this where we're going to start to see more selling pressure pick up? I am hoping so. Yeah, Manny needs a hero. Me too, Manny. I'm getting that one ready. Oh, I love that video. You guys all know our, what do I always call that? Our tradition. Yeah, it's a tradition like none other. I think they always say that about the Masters, but this is our tradition. To find that on Google or on YouTube or Google, just type in Powell printer, and it's one of the very first videos that pops up. Google or YouTube. Honestly, it's almost like the same shit now since the Google owns YouTube. You guys didn't know that? I'm sure most of you know that, though. So yeah, if you're out there and you're a hater of Google, you're essentially a hater of YouTube, too. The live goes crazy for the meeting. 78, Mason said. Hell to the yes, guys. 78, I love it. Let's go. The more the merrier. Smash that like button, guys. And hey, tomorrow I have to shave my head at some point if tomorrow's stream hits 100 likes. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does hit 100 tomorrow, I will literally shave my head live one morning on the stream. I'll somehow videotape it on my phone or something. I'll get it done. But I'm kind of hoping it doesn't happen, so you can either go against me or help me, one or the other. I don't know. I'm creating 90 fake accounts. No. No, Jane. That honestly would be pretty embarrassing. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it don't happen. He's doomed, I know. All right, Boeing starting to fall back off a little bit here. Been watching them a lot today. They've been running up with their earnings this morning. Let's see that watch list here. 22% on Plug, 7% on DWAC, 5% on Boeing with the watch list. Those are the main movers. I know Plug has been a big one. We've been watching them this morning on the live stream when they were up like 12%. Now they're up 22% on the day. Pretty nuts. MasterCard getting some movement. How's Pfizer? Pfizer's green, but they're not that great. Coinbase might be a good one. Starting to get some movement. How's US10Y? Starting to uptick here a little bit, which is expected. I would think that it would make sense if US10Y goes up with this news because essentially it means the Feds are going to hold rates higher for longer. Now, obviously with yields, they're still probably going to be looking for cuts later in the year, but this is something that is a little bit of a negative, I would say. Definitely a negative. It's going to make yields go up a little bit. Maybe these, watch for mortgage rates, watch for that little ripple effect maybe. But that does make sense that it would pop up. And I'm sure DXY is popping too. Yep, the dollar also popping up slightly. Palantir moving down. SPY starting to break at low of day from yesterday like we talked about, but it's really just consolidating and not really getting that major breakdown that it had on that first candle. Too bad. Even Tesla broke it. Meta almost looks like it's going to try to run here. On the bottom right chart. Same thing with Nvidia on the top right. Nvidia is now higher than before the event happened, so. Oh boy. Well, I think it's time, guys. Let's go, guys. Smash that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. It really helps us out here on the live streams, but let's go, guys. We are seeing some pretty insane movement in this stock market so far. We're falling down. A lot of stocks are dropping. For now, we might see Powell start to push the market back up, right? Hey, vote up in the poll if you guys are interested in what the market's doing. We already got 10 votes so far. Markets keep falling is what is winning. I would expect that to win since we're already falling here, but vote up in the poll, guys. Let's get as many votes on this poll as we can. Will Powell spark a recovery, or will the markets keep falling? 3 vote choices: recovery, markets keep falling, or around the same. Get those votes in. Earlier, we had a really close vote this morning on if the market was going to go up or down with this event. I think up won ever so slightly, but it was very, very close. So make that vote count. I know there's a lot of conflicted people on this one. Seems like it's 50-50. Just print money. We can always get more dollars and get out of this hole, Papa Powell. True. Just keep printing, they say. I don't know. It's worked so far for the US. The question is, when will it finally give out? Hopefully not in my lifetime. Hopefully I am long gone for that. If that happens, I don't know. Yeah, Mason, for real. Google started going up when that started playing, did it? We're gonna throw Google on the bottom right-hand chart. Yeah, it's kind of going up too. So far, Nvidia has been the big one popping out of the 4 big tech stocks that we've been watching today. Nvidia is not too bad. Look at that. Nvidia is going green, guys. Maybe Nvidia will hit new all-time highs. That would be hilarious. I doubt that happens, but maybe. It just might. On a day like this, you never know. Make sure you guys are getting ready for Powell, though. I will have him live here in about 15 minutes, or 14 minutes now. I will have him live right here, so make sure you guys are sticking around for that. Let's go. Let's go, let's go.
All right.
Hell yeah, Matthew. Today's going to be an awesome, awesome day out here. Can't wait for Powell to speak. I would say probably, well, I think I got to give it to him. Most influential person in the stock market. Most influential person in the stock market, at least right now. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think about that. Ooh, also, I just realized my microphone settings are a little off. I might be a little quieter or sound a little different than usual. I had to restart my computer after the morning stream today because it started getting a little whack. There we go. I might be a little louder now, so I might have to adjust a little bit. Pretty much just makes the mic sound better for me. Go puts on Google. Everything else can rise. I don't mind that. But Google drop. Yeah, I wish Google would go down. I mean, it seems like it's honestly one of the weaker stocks out there. So I really like that about this setup right here. And I like that it's also rejecting pretty well off of this resistance I have. Or at least very, very close to it, that is. Very close. But yeah, if you guys need to get anything done or go grab a drink or something like that, get it done. Powell will be here in about 12 minutes, so let's go. Smash up that like, guys. Let's try to hit 50 likes today. That would be a huge, huge milestone here. It's been a while since we hit 50. We hit 40 last week. Can we hit 50 today? Can Powell get us there is the question. Yeah, I was confused by that too, Manny. I was also confused, but all right, let's refresh this CNBC article, see what they added in here. All right. They removed language that indicated a willingness to keep raising interest rates until inflation has been brought under control and was on its way to the Fed's 2% inflation goal. Really? Okay. But they said that there's no plans yet to cut rates with inflation still running above the target. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword now that we're getting more info on this. On the bearish side of things, the plans to, or the lacking of plans to cut rates is pretty negative. On the bullish side, it's good that they removed this language about raising rates. But then again, has anyone really thought that they were going to keep raising rates? I mean, I doubt it. I would bet most people thought not. I would definitely think most people thought not. And hell yeah, what'd you guys have for lunch today? Let me know. You already know what I had for lunch, guys. You guys already know it. Or half of you do. Little mac and cheese with rice. Nice. Nice, Mason. Chipotle. That's a nice one. Ha. Not a Big Mac today, but you guys knew it. We had some chicken nuggets this time. I had to run to the store for the daughter real quick before the stream. Hell yeah, guys, that's awesome. Jane only eats once a day. Not a bad strategy, Jane. I've heard of people doing that. Well, let's go, guys. We're 9 minutes out from Powell. I will have him live here side by side with the stock market. And don't worry, last time, the one stream was late, but Bloomberg had it. So I'm going to have it up here. Don't worry. Here's the tab. Already got it. And I love it having the stock side by side with it too. Side by side is awesome. Really helps. For real, guys, I need a sponsor on McDonald's at this point. Write them a letter. Say to sponsor the live stream. That would be pretty dope. I don't know we're quite there yet, but if McDonald's wants to, I would take it. I've never heard of tap, whatever that is, harsh. I've never heard of that. Make sure you're a shareholder. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you should, right? Let me see where they're at on the daily. I don't know that I want to become a shareholder here on them. But they're pretty safe. It probably wouldn't hurt. Tapsilog. Let's see. Oh, wow. That does look really good. That looks fantastic, actually. Oh, man. Look at what Harsh had for breakfast or whatever today. That looks awesome. Nice egg with some meat and some rice. That looks amazing. All right, Powell, get out here. The suspense is killing me, right? What's up, Jane or Janet? How you doing? Christian posted up some NVIDIA news in discussion. They collaborate with Singtel for AI-driven data centers in Southeast Asia. Sounds like a new good thing for them. That could maybe be what is giving them that nice positivity compared to a lot of the other stocks out there. Although, it started to fade back off a little bit now. Going back to the 4-chart setup, Tesla is taking a hit down under 190 now at this point. That is rough, guys. Below 190 is always rough. Whoa, Christian said $1 trillion. $1 trillion? Oh. Analysts projected a $1 trillion opportunity for AI for NVIDIA. Wow, that is pretty big. I could see that. I don't think that they meant that that's just on this one thing, but overall, I could see that. If they do mean just on this one deal, then that could be huge, but... $1 trillion AI market projection. Wow. That's still pretty big. Hell yeah, Christian. Good looks. Oh, Manny. Nancy Pelosi had it too. I forgot about that. At least I forgot for a second. That's pretty rough. All right, Federal Reserve, get going. Get going live here for us. Hey, if you guys are just now joining up, make sure you smash that like button. Let's get Powell to help us out here today. Here's our 4-chart setup. Tesla, Meta, Nvidia, SPY. SPY starting to uptick a little bit again. Tesla's been really rough. Let's go, Mason. Christian is in the 620 calls weeklies on Nvidia. That is huge right there. Ooh. Just got some Disney news as well. I saw Manny put in discussion. Disney, their lawsuit against DeSantis got dismissed. That's looking pretty rough. Oof, that might cause some negativity on Disney here. Watch out. I don't think that's going to kill him, but might be slightly negative. Surprised there's not more movement on it yet. Our ETA on Powell is literally about 2 minutes, guys. 2 minutes from the Big Daddy. Going live for us. Let's go. That is pretty big. Disney got spanked. Yeah, let's hope that they can recover from this one. Vin in discussion has me laughing. We're like 1 minute out, guys. 1 minute out. Let's go.
It's time!
I love that. Gotta get the hype going, guys. Let's go. Come on, Powell. Get out here and get us. Let's get this set up. Get this all nice and ready for him here. We'll have that SPY side by side with him. Let's try to get it all nice and zoomed in as much as we can here. Here we go, guys. I will turn the volume up whenever he comes out. I'll make sure that we have it as loud as possible for us. All right, should be any second now. Any second. Let's go. Come on, Powell. Don't keep us waiting too long here. The suspense is killing me. Come on, Powell. Get us in. There we go, guys. Here we go.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. The economy has made good progress toward our dual mandate objectives. Inflation has eased from its highs without a significant increase in unemployment. That's very good news. But inflation is still too high, ongoing progress in bringing it down is not assured, and the path forward is uncertain. I want to assure the American people that we are fully committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal. Restoring price stability is essential to achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Over the past 2 years, we have significantly tightened the stance of monetary policy. Our strong actions have moved our policy rate well into restrictive territory, and we've been seeing the effects on economic activity and inflation. As labor market tightness has eased and progress on inflation has continued, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a solid pace. GDP growth in the fourth quarter of last year came in at 3.3%. For 2023 as a whole, GDP expanded at 3.1%, bolstered by strong consumer demand as well as improving supply conditions. Activity in the housing sector was subdued over the past year, largely reflecting high mortgage rates. High interest rates also appear to have been weighing on business fixed investment. The labor market remains tight, but supply and demand conditions continue to come into better balance. Over the past 3 months, payroll job gains averaged 165,000 jobs per month, a pace that is well below that seen a year ago, but still strong. The unemployment rate remains low at 3.7%. Strong job creation has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers. The labor force participation rate has moved up on balance over the past year, particularly for individuals aged 25 to 54 years, and immigration has returned to pre-pandemic levels. Nominal wage growth has been easing and job vacancies have declined. Although the jobs to workers gap has narrowed, labor demand still exceeds the supply of available workers. Inflation has eased notably over the past year, but remains above our longer-run goal of 2%. Total PCE prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in December. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%. The lower inflation readings over the second half of last year are welcome, but we will need to see continuing evidence to build confidence that inflation is moving down sustainably toward our goal. Longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We're highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we're strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. Over the past 2 years, we have raised our policy rate by 5.25 percentage points, and we've decreased our securities holdings by more than $1.3 trillion. Our restrictive stance of monetary policy is putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation. The committee decided at today's meeting to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5%, and to continue the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. We believe that our policy rate is likely at its peak for this tightening cycle, and that, if the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year. But the economy has surprised forecasters in many ways since the pandemic, and ongoing progress toward our 2% inflation objective is not assured. The economic outlook is uncertain, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks. We are prepared to maintain the current target range for the federal funds rate for longer, if appropriate. As labor market tightness has eased and progress on inflation has continued, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance. We know that reducing policy restraint too soon or too much could result in a reversal of the progress we've seen on inflation and ultimately require even tighter policy to get inflation back to 2%. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too late or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering any adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. The committee does not expect that it will be appropriate to reduce the target range until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable
typical
prices
spiel, they call
over
it.
the longer run.
The typical.
To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to our questions.
Gina Smiley from the New York Times. Thanks for taking our questions. Obviously, in the statement and just in your remarks there, you note that you don't want to cut interest rates without greater confidence that inflation is coming down fully. I wonder, what do you need to see at this point to gain that confidence? And as you make those decisions, how are you weighing recent strong growth in consumer spending data against the sort of solid inflation progress you've been seeing?
Sorry, say that last part again.
How are you weighing the growth data and consumption data, which have been surprisingly strong, against inflation data?
Okay. So what are we looking for to get greater confidence? Let me say that we have confidence. We're looking for greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2%. Implicitly, we do have confidence and it has been increasing, but we want to get greater confidence. What do we want to see? We want to see more good data. It's not that we're looking for better data. We're looking at continuation of the good data that we've been seeing. And a good example is inflation. So we have 6 months of good inflation data. The question really is, that 6 months of good inflation data, is it sending us a true signal that we are in fact on a path, sustainable path down to 2% inflation? That's the question. And the answer will come from some more data that's also good data. It's not that the 6-month data isn't low enough. It is. It's just a question of, can we take that with confidence that we're moving sustainably down to 2%? That's really what we're thinking about. In terms of growth, we've had strong growth. I mean, if you take a step back, we've had strong growth, very strong growth last year, going right into the fourth quarter. And yet we've had a very strong labor market, and we've had inflation coming down. So I think, whereas a year ago we were thinking that we needed to see some softening in economic activity, that hasn't been the case. So I think we look at stronger growth. We don't look at it as a problem. I think at this point we want to see strong growth. We want to see a strong labor market. We're not looking for a weaker labor market. We're looking for inflation to continue to come down as it has been coming down for the last 6 months.
And I'm sorry, if I could just follow up very quickly. When you say that you want to make sure that it's a true signal, is there anything that you're seeing in the data that makes you doubt that it's a true signal at this stage?
No, I think I would say it seems to be the likely case that we will achieve that confidence, but we have to achieve it, and we haven't yet. And so, I mean, it's a good story. We have 6 months of good inflation, but you can, and you know this, you can look behind those numbers and you can see that a lot of it's been coming from goods inflation, for example, and goods inflation running significantly negative. It's a reasonable assumption that over time, goods inflation will flatten out, probably approximate zero. That would mean the services sectors would have to contribute more. So, in other words, what we care about is the aggregate number, not so much the composition. But we just need to see more. That's where we are as a committee. We need to see more evidence that sort of confirms what we think we're seeing and that tells us that we are on, gives us confidence that we're on a path to a sustainable path down to 2% inflation.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, it seems to me you raised rates rapidly over the last 2 years for two reasons. One was the risk of a wage price spiral. Two, there were risks of inflation expectations becoming unanchored. This morning's ECI report for the fourth quarter shows private sector payroll growth running at a sub 4% pace. Inflation expectations are very close to where they were before the inflation emergency of the last 3 years. And given that you appear to have substantially cut off these two tail risks, and that you've judged here today current policy as well into restrictive territory, what good reason is there to keep policy rates above 5%? Are you really going to learn more waiting 6 weeks versus 3 months from now that you have avoided those two risks?
So, as you know, almost every participant on the committee does believe that it will be appropriate to reduce rates. And for partly for the reasons that you say, we feel like inflation is coming down. Growth has been strong. The labor market is strong. What we're trying to do is identify a place where we're really confident about inflation getting back down to 2% so that we can then begin the process of dialing back the restrictive level. So overall, I think people do believe, and as you know, the median participant wrote down 3 rate cuts this year. But I think to get to that place where we feel comfortable starting the process, we need some confirmation that inflation is in fact coming down sustainably to 2%.
If I could ask differently, if you hold rates high as inflation moderates, as it has been, target rates will exceed the prescriptions of the Taylor rule or its variants. What would be the reasoning for holding rates higher than the levels recommended by those rules in the current instance?
Well, look, I think, as you know, we consult a range of Taylor rules and non-Taylor kind of rules. We consult them regularly. They're in our teal book, and they're in all the materials that we look at. But, I don't think we've ever been at a place where we were setting policy by them. And they're, depending on the rule, it will tell you different things. There are many different formulations. Another way to think about it is implicitly is so. In theory, of course, real rates go up if holding all else equal as inflation comes down. But that doesn't mean we can mechanically adjust policy as real rates, as inflation comes down. It doesn't mean that at all because, for one thing, we don't know. We look at more than just the Fed funds rate. We look at broadly financial conditions. But in addition, we don't know with great confidence where the neutral rate of interest is at any given time. But that also doesn't mean that we wait around to see, the economy turn down, because that would be too late. So we're really in a risk management mode of managing the risk, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, managing the risk that we move too soon and move too late. And I think to move, which is where almost everyone on the committee is in favor of moving rates down this year. But the timing of that is going to be linked to our gaining confidence that inflation is on a sustainable path down to 2%.
Howard.
Hi, thanks, Chair Powell. I'd like you to key in on the use of the word in the statement that inflation still remains elevated. You've pledged to cut rates before inflation reached 2%. So that implies that there's some sort of intermediate step here on inflation, and that a cut would be consequent with a change in the statement language that inflation remains elevated. What's the step down from there?
Yeah, I don't know that we've worked out the particular statement language and that kind of thing. I would just say, if you look at where 12-month inflation is, and it's still well above. Core is 2.9%, for example, 12 months, which is way down from where it was. Very, very positive development, very fast decline, and the case is likely that it will continue to come down. So that's where it is. But we're wanting to see more data.
So if I could follow up on that, the statement allows that you want greater confidence on inflation falling before you cut, but it doesn't mention the other side of the mandate, a slide in employment. Would a slide in employment also bring you to the point of cutting rates?
Yes. So let me say that we're not looking for that. It's not something we're looking for. But yes, if you think about, in the base case, the economy is performing well, the labor market remains strong. If we saw an unexpected weakening certainly in the labor market, that would certainly weigh on cutting sooner. Absolutely. And if we saw inflation being stickier or higher or those sorts of things would argue for moving later. In the base case, though, where the economy is healthy and we have ongoing growth, solid growth, we have a strong labor market, we have inflation coming down, that's what people are writing their SEP around. And in that case, what we're saying is, based on that, we think we can and should take advantage of that and be careful as we approach that question of when to begin to dial back restriction.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. Just to circle back to the greater confidence aspect of the statement, there's been a lot of unanimity in recent meetings. I'm just wondering, going forward, when it comes to all needing greater confidence, is the unanimity, or at least consensus among FOMC members, about what the threshold for that greater confidence is? And if not, could you maybe tell us a little bit about the discussion today on, what the variations between FOMC members was on what constitutes enough confidence to cut rates, and also if there was any variation on how quickly that greater confidence threshold could be reached. Thank you.
We're not really at that stage. There was no proposal to cut rates. Some people did talk about their view of the rate path. I would point you to the SEP as good evidence of where people are, although it is one cycle later. So, we're not at a place of really working out those kinds of details because we weren't actively considering moving the federal funds rate down. I will say there is a wide disparity, a healthy disparity of views, and you see that in public statements, in the minutes and the transcripts when they're released every 5 years. So we do have a healthy set of differences, and I think that's actually essential for making good policy. We're also able to reach agreement generally because we listen to each other, we compromise, and even though not everybody loves what we do, they're able to, for the most part, able to join in. To me, that's a well-functioning public institution.
Rachel. Hi, Chair Powell, Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. So over the past few years, there have been all these real-time indicators that helped us gain a sharper understanding of where the economy was, like open table data or office attendance. You've talked about vacancies in the past. And I'm wondering at the start of this year, what might be on that dashboard for you that's giving you the clearest picture of the economy, including on rents, if you could touch on that.
Including?
Rent costs.
Yeah. Well, so we're not, it's not the pandemic, so we can actually rely on more traditional forms. People are working, they're getting wages, and the economy is largely reopened and is broadly normalizing, as you see. So I wouldn't say we're looking at that sort of more innovative data as much. You point to rents, so of course we follow the components of inflation very carefully, which would be goods inflation. I talked about that a little bit. You mentioned housing inflation, so the question is, when will these lower market rents find their way into measured rents as measured in PCE inflation? And we think that's coming, and we know it's coming. It's just a question of when and how big it'll be. So, but that's in everyone's forecast, I would say. So that will help. But at the same time, we think goods inflation will probably, it's been giving a lot of disinflation to the effort, and probably that declines over time. But it may well have some more time to run. The supply chains are not perfectly back to where they were. In addition, it takes time for the healing process to get into prices. So there may be still a tailwind. We'll find out with that. So we look at the things that relate to our mandate very carefully, and as you would imagine.
I guess just as a quick follow-up, do you feel comfortable at this point saying the economy has reached a soft landing, or is that part of looking for more confidence?
No, I wouldn't say we've achieved that, and I think we have a ways to go. Inflation is still, core inflation is still well above target on a 12-month basis. 12 months is our target. Certainly, I'm encouraged, and we're encouraged by the progress, but we're not declaring victory at all at this point. We think we have a ways to go.
Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've said that you would know the neutral rate by its works. So I'm wondering what you could tell me. How do you believe the neutral rate is working? We're telling you right now that growth is stronger. In other words, how much is the economy really being restrained right now by the current funds rate? And how much restraint does it really need additionally if inflation is still coming down?
So I think you do see in the interest-sensitive parts of the economy, you do see, for example, housing, you see the effects, you do. Your second question, though, really, I think is important, and that is a lot of this has come through, a lot of the disinflationary process has come through the healing of supply chains and also of the labor market. So you've seen that other set of factors is really different from other cycles and has brought that working with tighter policy, which has enabled the supply side to recover, I think that mixture has been behind what has enabled this. So no, we really do think that we're having an effect broadly across the economy. I would point to the interest-sensitive parts of the economy as well as spending generally. But it's a joint story. It's a complicated story.
But how much restraint are you actually imparting to the economy, would you say, relative to the neutral rate?
So I think it's of course you know that it's not something you can identify with any precision, but a standard approach would be to take the nominal rate, 5.3%, let's say, and subtract sort of a forward measure of inflation. If you do that, and there are many, many ways to calculate that neutral rate, but that's one I like to do, and you're going to get to something that is materially above mainstream estimates of neutrality, of the neutral rate. You will, but at the same time, you look at the economy and you say, this is an economy that grew 3.1% last year. And you say, what does that tell you about the neutral rate? What's happening, though, is the supply side has been recovering in the middle of this. So that won't go on forever. So a lot of the growth we're seeing it isn't just a tug of war between interest rates and demand. You're getting, more activity because of labor market healing and supply chains healing. So I think the question is when that peters out, I think the restriction will show up probably more sharply.
Rich. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks for taking the question, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned earlier we're not seeking a weaker labor market. I think you said. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Do you think the labor market now is back to quote unquote normal? And that we can achieve the inflation target without wage gains coming back down to what they were pre-pandemic. Even with today's ECI levels, they were still above those pre-pandemic levels.
I think the labor market by many measures is at or nearing normal, but not totally back to normal. And you pointed to one or more of them. So I think job openings are not quite back to where they were. Wage increases rather are not quite back to where they would need to be in the longer run. I would look at it this way, though. The economy is broadly normalizing, and so is the labor market. And that process will probably take some time. So wage setting is something that happens. It's probably will take a couple of years to get all the way back, and that's okay. That's okay. But we do see. You saw today's ECI reading. The evidence is that that wage increases are still at a healthy level, very healthy level, but they're gradually moving back to levels that would be more associated, given assumptions about productivity, are more typically associated with 2% inflation. It's an ongoing process, a healthy one, and I think we're moving in the right direction.
So that process can continue without a weakening of the labor market, basically, you're saying?
Well, I think the labor market is, I don't know if it's rebalancing. Clearly, there was a fairly severe imbalance between demand for workers and supply at the beginning of the pandemic. So we lost several million workers at the beginning of the pandemic from people dropping out of the labor force. And then when the economy reopened, you remember 2021, you had a severe labor shortage, and it was everywhere. The panic on the part of businesses couldn't find people. So what's happened is we expected the labor market to come back quickly, and it didn't. And 2022 was a disappointing year. And, we were kind of thinking, well, maybe we won't get it back. And then 2023, we did, as you know. So labor force participation came back strongly in 23, and so did immigration. Immigration came to a halt during the pandemic. So those two forces have significantly lowered the temperature in the labor market to where it's still a very strong labor market. It's still a good labor market for wages and for finding a job, but it's getting back into balance. And that's what we want to see. And one great way to look at that is what's happening with wage increases. And you see it now across the major things that we track. It isn't every quarter, but overall there's a clear trend, still at high levels, but back down to what would be consistent with where we were before the pandemic and with 2% inflation.
Chris.
Hi, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Thank you. I wanted to follow up on Rich's question. It sounded like you suggested that you're not worried about faster growth so much. So wanted to see if you're seeing anything that suggests that inflation could reaccelerate from here. And it sounds like you're saying you're not worried that solid growth from here on out poses any risk to inflation. Thank you.
No, I think that is a risk, the risk that inflation would reaccelerate. I think the greater risk is that it would stabilize at a level meaningfully above 2%. That's to me more likely. Of course, if inflation were to surprise by moving back up, we would have to respond to that, and that would be a surprise at this point. But I have to tell you, that's why we keep our options open here and why we're not rushing. So I think both of those are risks, but I think the more likely risk is the one that I mentioned, which is you've had 6 good months, very good months, but what's really going to shake out here? When we look back, what will we see? Will inflation have dipped and then come back up? Are the last 6 months flattered by factors that are one-off factors that won't repeat themselves? We don't think so. That's not what we think, but that's the question we are asking. We have to ask, and we want to get comfort on that.
And just one quick follow-up. Governor Waller had mentioned the revisions that are coming on February 9th for the CPI data. Is that something you're watching as well? And if we see those revisions fairly minor, is that going to give you more confidence where things are going?
We'll just have to see. Yeah, we'll look at those. Last year was a surprise.
Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio and Television. If you don't want to use the term soft landing, would you say at least that from your point of view now, the other scenario of a hard landing caused by the Fed is off the table, or the risks have diminished very much? And you mentioned below 2% inflation on a 3-month basis. Core PCE has been running at 1.5%. And there are those on Wall Street who think that if you maintain the level of restriction you have right now, you could end up with inflation running below your target. How do you see that?
So your first question, how to describe where we are. So I guess I would just say this. Executive summary would be that growth is solid to strong over the course of last year. The labor market, 3.7% unemployment, indicates that the labor market is strong. We've had just about 2 years now of unemployment under 4%. That hasn't happened in 50 years, so it's a good labor market. And we've seen inflation come down. We've talked about that. So we've got 6 months of good inflation data and an expectation that there's more to come. So this is a good situation. Let's be honest. This is a good economy. But what's the outlook? That's looking in the review. The outlook, we do expect growth to moderate. Of course, we have expected it for some time, and it hasn't happened. But we do expect that it will moderate as supply chain and labor market normalization runs its course. The labor market is rebalancing, as I mentioned. Job creation has slowed. The base of job growth has narrowed. And of course, 12-month inflation is above target and getting down closer to target. It's not guaranteed, but we do seem to be getting on track for that. So those are the risks and questions we have to answer. But overall, this is a pretty good picture. It is a good picture. Your second question was, sorry.
Could you get inflation that is below target, end up with inflation below target, and you have to do something about that?
So the thing is, we're not looking for inflation to tap the 2% base once. We're looking for it to settle out over time at 2%. And the same thing is true. If we have a month or two of lower, and we have that now, of inflation that's annualized at a lower level, that wouldn't be good. We're not looking to have inflation anchor below 2%. We're looking to have it anchor at 2%. So if we do face those circumstances, then we'll have to deal with that. I think as of now, the question, which we want to take advantage of this situation and finish the job on inflation while keeping the labor market strong.
Edward.
Edward Lawrence from Fox Business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking this. So as I've heard from some district Fed presidents, is it, in your view, a little premature to think that rate cuts are right around the corner? And then when we do see that first rate cut, should we interpret that as the beginning of a rate cut cycle, or is it a one-off?
So I'll point to that language on your first question. We included that language in the statement to signal clearly that with strong growth, strong labor market, inflation coming down, the committee intends to move carefully as we consider when to begin to dial back the restrictive stance that we have in place. So if you take that to the current context, we're going to be data dependent. We're going to be looking at this meeting by meeting. Based on the meeting today, I would tell you that I don't think it's likely that the committee will reach a level of confidence by the time of the March meeting to identify March as the time to do that. But that's to be seen. So I wouldn't call, when you ask me about in the near term, right, I'm hearing that as March. I would say I don't think it's probably not the most likely case or what we would call the base case. Then your second question is
is this the start of when we see a cut, is it the start of a cutting cycle, or could it just be a one-off?
That's going to depend on the data. The whole thing is this is going to depend on the data. We're going to be looking at the economic data as it affects the outlook and the balance of risks, and we're going to make our decisions based on that. And it could wind up, we'll have another SEP at the March meeting, and people will write down what they think. But in the end, it's really going to depend on how the economy evolves. We talked about there are risks that would cause us to go slower. For example, stronger inflation, more persistent inflation. There are risks that would cause us to, or if they happened, that would cause us to go faster and sooner, and that would be a weakening in the labor market, or for that matter, very, very persuasive lower inflation. Those are the kinds of things. So we're just going to be reacting to the data. That's really the only way we can do this.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Could you talk a little bit more about productivity growth? You've mentioned multiple times about, the level of wage growth that's consistent with 2% inflation. We've obviously seen, you were talking about ECI this morning, in which it's cooled a little bit, but still sort of above what you wanted to see. Growth has been very strong. How much of those numbers do you attribute to productivity, and do you see that productivity as sort of just temporary because of the factors, the labor and supply chain factors you were talking about, or do you think that productivity growth will fade over time?
So this is a really interesting question, and I think my own view is, I think if you look back to the pandemic, you saw a spike in productivity as workers were laid off and activity didn't decline as fast. And then you saw a deep trough of productivity. And then over the last, you saw high productivity last year in 23. I think we're basically in the throes of getting through the pandemic economy. And the question will be, what is it that has changed? The productivity tends to be based on, fundamental aspects of our economy. Is there a case, will it be the case that we come out of this more productive, more on a sustained basis? And I don't know. What would it take? It would take, people talk about AI, but my guess is that we may shake out and be back where we were, because I'm not sure I see work from home doesn't seem like it's a big productivity increaser. AI, artificial intelligence, generative may be, but probably not in the short run, probably maybe in the longer run. So I'm not seeing why it would, but right now, I would say the productivity is kind of what falls out of the broader forces that are driving people in and out of the labor force, and activity returning and supply chains getting fixed.
Right, so would that be behind why we've seen such strong growth, but we've also seen inflation fall, that maybe there's just a higher level of productivity
That's
right
one
now?
way to look at it, yeah.
Nancy.
Hi, Chair Powell. Nancy Marshall-Genzer with Marketplace. I want to ask a little bit more about housing. I'm wondering, how closely are you watching rent and housing prices as you evaluate whether and when to cut rates? And it seems like housing prices are not coming down as quickly as you expected.
So when we think about, our statutory goals are maximum employment and price stability, and that's what we're targeting. We're not targeting housing price inflation, the cost of housing, or any of those things. Those are very important things for people's lives, but they're not, those are not the things we're targeting. We're also well aware that when we cut rates at the beginning of the pandemic, for example, the housing industry was helped more than any other industry. And when we raise rates, the housing industry can be hurt because it's a very interest-sensitive sector. On top of that, we have longer run problems with the availability of housing. We have a built-up set of cities, and people are moving further and further out. So there hasn't been enough housing built, and these are not things that we have any tools to address. But where it comes into play very specifically in our work is inflation, which is a combination. It's really rental inflation. You're taking owner's equivalent rent and then actual rent paid by tenants, and you're running that through the CPI calculation or the PCE calculation, the one we look at. And what that's telling you is that market rents are increasing at a much lower rate or even being flat, and that will show up in inflation over time. It has to, as long as that remains the case. So.
And just real quick, what is your response to the letter that was sent to you by some members of Congress asking the Fed to lower interest rates to make housing more affordable?
My response is what I started with, which is that our job, the job Congress has given us, is price stability and maximum employment. Price stability is absolutely essential for people's lives, most importantly, mostly for people at the lower end of the income spectrum who are living at the edges, at the margins. And so for someone like that, high inflation, in the necessities of life, right away you're in trouble. Whereas even middle class people have some scope to absorb higher costs. So we have to it's our job, it's what society has asked us to do, is to get inflation down. And the tools that we use to do it are interest rates. So that's how we think about that.
Courtney.
Courtney Brown from Axios. Can you give us some insight into whether the committee discussed the possibility of slowing balance sheet runoff in the months ahead?
Yes. So I would start by saying that balance sheet runoff so far has gone very well. And as the process has continued, we're getting to that time where questions are beginning to come into greater focus about the pace of runoff and all that. So at this meeting, we did have some discussion of the balance sheet, and we're planning to begin in-depth discussions of balance sheet issues at our next meeting in March. So those questions are all coming into scope now, and we're focusing on them. But we're at the beginning of that process, I would say.
Quick follow-up. Is it the case that the Fed would decide to lower rates and make adjustments to the balance sheet runoff in tandem?
Yes, we do. We see those as independent tools, and so they don't. For example, if you're normalizing policy, you might be reducing rates but continuing to run off the balance sheet. In both cases, that's normalization. But from a strict monetary policy standpoint, you could say we're loosening and one with tightening. So that could happen. It's not something we're planning or thinking about, but right now we're thinking about getting to a place where we're going to see the balance sheet runoff to continue. We're watching it carefully, and as I said, we'll be looking into that as a committee starting in March.
Thanks.
Simon.
Simon Rabinovich with The Economist. Thank you, Chair Powell. You've mentioned 6 good months of inflation data, but that not being enough to build up confidence. Based on your previous response that your base case is you probably wouldn't start easing yet in March, the implication is that 8 good months might not be enough either. Roughly how many months do you think you might need of good inflation data to be confident?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to put a number on it. I'm just going to say, it's not that we don't have any confidence. We have growing confidence, but not to the point where we feel like it's a highly consequential decision to start the process of dialing back on restriction, and we want to get that right. And we feel like the strong economy, strong labor market, inflation coming down, it gives us the ability to do that. We think that's the best way we can serve the public, because ultimately we've made a lot of progress on inflation. We just want to make sure that we do get the job done in a sustainable way. That's how we're thinking about it. In terms of when that'll be, that'll all come out of our communications, and we won't keep that a secret.
Hi, Chair Powell. Evan Reiser with M&I Market News. Can you explain a little bit more on what you're considering when tapering QT? Do you need to see the overnight reverse repo facility all the way down to 0, or is it something that you can start with a couple $100 billion there?
Not a decision that we've made, but I wouldn't think we wouldn't be taking a position that it's got to go to 0. I mean, if it were to stabilize at a different level, but that's not a decision that we've made. That's what we'll be talking about at the March meeting. A whole range of issues will be briefed up in the committee. We'll get into all of the issues that will be arising over the course of the next, let's say, year or so.
Greg.
Thanks, Greg Robb from Market Watch. Chair Powell, I want to change gears a little bit. In the presidential primary campaign that's been going on for the last 9 months or so, your name has come up often, and many Republican candidates had said that they probably wouldn't want to give you a 3rd term. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. Do you want another term? You've had on the Fed. What's your stance on that?
I don't have a stance on that. It's not something I'm focused on. Focused on doing our jobs. This year is going to be a highly consequential year for the Fed and for monetary policy, and we're all of us very buckled down, focused on doing our jobs.
Powell's going to kick that guy out of the next meeting.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. As you mentioned, core PCE has been running at 1.9% over the past 6 months, and you guys are actually expecting core inflation higher this year at 2.4% compared to that 6-month measure. Given that forecast and that the median is for 3 rate cuts this year, what happens if inflation stays where it's been over the last 6 months for the next 6 months?
So we'll update our inflation forecasts at the next meeting. You referred to the December meeting. That's 3 months old, so it might be lower now given the data we've gotten. So look, as I mentioned, we're going to be reacting to the data. If we get very strong inflation data and it kicks back up, then we'll go slower or later or both. If we got really good inflation data soon, that would matter for both that would tell us that we could go sooner and perhaps go faster. So we're just going to be but of course we'll weigh that with all the other factors. We're setting policy based on the totality of the data.
But just to follow, if inflation stays where it is currently, that would probably mean that the real interest rate becomes more restrictive. Would that mean you'd have to trim more, perhaps, than you already have factored in?
Well, I think if we came to the view that that the 6-month inflation numbers, which are very close to 2, were in PCE world, if we thought that is really where we're going to be, then yes, our policy would be in a different place. It would. But that's the whole point, is we're trying to get comfortable and gain confidence that inflation is on a sustainable path down to 2% or toward 2%.
Daniel.
Hi, Chair Powell. Daniel Avis, Agence France Presse. I just wondered if I could get your comment on the recent consumer confidence data. It seems to suggest that consumers are sort of moving towards a much more optimistic view of the economy. I just wonder, is it fair to say that they're moving towards where the Fed appears to have been in recent months?
I love it, Chad.
And do you think that inflation and falling inflation perhaps has played a role in that? And what challenges do you see going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been interesting that confidence surveys have been weak at a time when unemployment has been low, very low, historically low for a couple of years. But nonetheless, that's been the case, and we've asked ourselves why that is. And one obvious answer, we don't pretend to have perfect wisdom on this, but one obvious answer is that the price level is high. So prices went up much more than 2% per year for a couple of years, and people are going to the store and they're paying much more for the basics of life than they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they're not happy about it. And it's fine that inflation's coming down, but the prices they're paying are still high. So that is what that has to be some part of why people are unhappy, and they're right to be unhappy. This is why we need to keep price stability. It's why we need to do our jobs, is so that people don't have to deal with things like this. In terms of you're right. In recent surveys, you've seen a couple of significant increases in consumer confidence or happiness with the economy. I guess that's a good thing. That can support spending, can support economic activity. There's some evidence of that. But you're right. It is a fact that we have seen a meaningful increase. I think levels of confidence are still maybe not as high as they've been at various times, but they certainly have come up.
Thank you for taking our questions. Brian Mena, CNN Business. Committee members have said they'd like to meet with business leaders and stakeholders in person to learn more about the economy in real time, given that some data are subject to large revisions, the issue of seasonal adjustments being thrown off balance, and many readings of the economy being quarterly. So did any members say they've learned anything not yet reflected in the data, or have you yourself learned anything through anecdotal evidence that hasn't been captured in the data yet?
Well, yes. I'm a big believer that yes. So we do meet with outside groups who come from all different parts of the economy, and I always feel like I spent most of my life in the private sector looking at companies, individual management teams, and then building out from that. And so starting with GDP data and working into what's actually affecting people's lives is challenging. It's very hard. So I really like anecdotal data. In addition, as you know, the 12 reserve banks have really the best network of anyone, that in all their districts they're talking to, not just the business community, but the educational, medical, all nonprofit community. They have arms into all of that. And so when they come back, that's what goes into the beige book. But that they come back, and what each reserve bank president does is during the Outlook go around, they'll say, in my district, and they'll talk about 100 conversations. They won't talk up. They will give you input based on 100 conversations that they've had with people of all different walks. And I personally find it very helpful in understanding what's going on. And also, I think you hear things before they show up in the data sometimes.
Did any of them note a slowing economy based on what they've heard from their district?
Yes, I mean, if you look back at the last, not this beige book, but the one before, there was a lot of slower activity. I think that what you're hearing now is things are picking up a bit. You're hearing not in every district, and not every person that we talk to, but you're overall, it feels like you're hearing things picking up at the margin. So that's what comes through.
Let's go to Jeff Cox for the last question.
Thank you, sir. Jeff Cox from CNBC.com. Just kind of looking to put it all together. You talked about basically the economy looking strong with 3.3% annualized growth in the fourth quarter. Does the strength of the economy speak more loudly to you now than any inflation threat might? That you're in a position, in other words, to keep rates elevated as long as the economy stays strong, and you're more tilted towards that. And then also, perhaps, are you worried at all that the economy is maybe a little too strong right now and that inflation could come back at some point?
I'm not so worried about that. It's again, we've had inflation come down without a slow economy and without important increases in unemployment, and there's no reason why we should want to get in the way of that process if it's going to continue. So I think declining inflation, continued declines in inflation, are really the main thing we're looking at. Of course, we want the labor market to remain strong too. We don't have a growth mandate. We've got a maximum employment mandate and a price stability mandate, and those are the two things we look at. Growth only matters to the extent it influences our achievement of those two mandates. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, guys, that was quite a bit, wasn't it? I mean, don't you love it whenever Powell starts talking? He comes out, makes the stock market go crazy. For everyone who has not been keeping track, the SPY has actually been tanking down here a little bit. Initially, it moved down. Whenever he started talking, it started running back up a little bit. And then now, as he's leaving, the SPY is pretty low on the day, down around 484 and under 485. Kind of actually rejecting off of 485 right here. So that is a pretty big deal. He made a lot of statements. Obviously, they're going to be very careful with the March meeting. He said that they were not quite convinced that there's going to be a cut yet, but obviously that could change. So we'll have to see how the next inflation readings end up coming out. But for now, I would say it's more of a negative on the market than a positive. So watch VXX, UVXY, and a couple other of those ETFs that go against the market. But SPY right now, it's at resistance again, getting closer to 485 and might try to break back up. But initially, fairly negative because it makes it kind of seem like that they're going to be holding out on the rate cuts for a little bit. And that's one thing that kind of makes me sad. I hope that they don't hold out too long. Yeah, look at the percentages now that he's done speaking. It actually updated 64% on the March side. That is a huge, huge difference than before, where we were at like 60% on the actual cut side. So they're sitting on the pause right now. The market's starting to price that in, and hopefully as we head towards March, May continues to stay priced in as well. If they start holding it through May, it's going to get a little bit hairier again. But looking here, at least for March right now, starting to price in a bit of a pause, which is kind of going against what the market thought, right? The market had been kind of thinking that we would have that cut come in March. So without that, the SPY has a big red candle today. And I'll tell you what, looking at the SPY over the past few months, it's been straight up. Is this going to finally be where we start to trend back down and go on a good, downtrend again, or a good pullback? It might just be, this might be what starts to fuel a short-term pullback. That doesn't mean it's going to die or anything, but definitely watch the market heading into tonight and tomorrow. Of course, check out the nightly video tonight if you guys are interested. We need 2 more likes for 50 likes. Who's going to get us there? Let's go. Jane, thank you. Thank you, Jane, Luis, Corbin, Manny, everybody out there for joining up today. Seriously, there were so many of you on the stream. Got hyped for Powell. We had some fun with it. And Jane enjoyed the catnip. I love it. Thanks, Corbin. Appreciate you guys. Hey, 54 likes. There we go. Hit the goal. Hit the goal. I love it. I love it. But it's getting to that time of the day where, we're getting towards the end. It's power hour. We have about 45, 46, 47 minutes left of the market. Maybe the SPY will start to recover, but I don't know. I'm kind of hoping it stays a little bit lower so that heading into tomorrow, we can maybe look at some good put plays out there. I know Netflix is one that I'm watching very closely. It's been pretty high lately. Nvidia has actually been doing good. I'm not going to say great, but just good. Better than most stocks out there. Microsoft's been kind of down in the dumps all day. Down around support. If that support starts to give out at $400 even tomorrow, Microsoft might be one of the more fun plays. I'm going to set an alert there, actually, because it's so such an influential level right at 400. Let's go. Hopefully that can hit, and then we can see some fire momentum below there. If not, tomorrow we start to see a bounce back. Obviously, be adaptable. Don't just trade puts willy-nilly tomorrow. Definitely have a good plan. Make some levels break first. SPY's starting to come back alive a little bit now, end of day. I wonder how high it will get. There's a big resistance here where we double bottomed right around 485.65. So watch out for that. Maybe as a resistance. Also up around like 487, pretty big too. Hell yeah, Xbox. Then don't forget about the live Q&A tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for trading floor members only. If you guys are interested in the trading floor, make sure you check out the link that I'm about to throw up in the chat. You guys will get access to all of our bots, all of our callouts, swing trades, everything that we offer in Discord for one price. And you will also get access to that live Q&A tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time where you can ask us anything you want. So let's go, guys. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Powell was pretty fun today, but overall, pretty much said the same stuff as always, right? Have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later.